in our article, we began to think about, if we really think about the relevance of our research to whether it's policymakers or practitioners, how do we think about as qualitative researchers how that works? And one of the things we did in the article was to sort of redefine relevance in some way that I don't have time to go into now, but also to think about who are our audiences and really think through what are the multiple audiences that we should be addressing now. And one of the interesting things about to what extent does our research make its way to legislators? And you folks in Wisconsin should be particularly aware of that because you've had such a contentious political environment here around the anti-labor stuff, and I just bought the paper today about the statement about universities and so forth. So how do we get to those folks with our research, right? And that's a question that unfortunately a lot of think tanks have figured out, and we haven't, right? And I addressed that a little bit in my talk yesterday. We need to get better at getting our work out there because we're the ones that are sitting on the actual evidence, not just the ideology, right? So policy is increasingly being made for ideological reasons. We should convert everything into markets, right? Transfer from the business sector into the public sector. Well, that's an ideological position, right? There's no evidence that schools work better as businesses, but it's become a common sense out there that somebody has created. And we need to use our research and our data to talk back to some of that, either support it with data or contest it with data. Chris Lubinsky and Lubinsky have a new book out on, why with a quantitative study of arguing that public schools actually do better than private and charter schools, right? Which is kind of counterintuitive based on the kind of propaganda we hear out there. Now, one of the problems that we've raised in that article also is typically when we debate something like charter schools or reading instruction or bilingual education or any of a number of areas, it typically is sort of dueling quantitative studies, right? So Stanford came out with a study saying charter schools were not doing so well, and even from the Hoover Institute, right, which we wouldn't have expected. Then Carolyn Hoxby at Harvard comes out with her study saying, no, they actually do better. And then there's another, this back and forth of dueling studies is how we tend to think about how we interface with policy. And of course, we know that a single study really doesn't say much until we have a kind of accumulation of evidence over time. But the press, for example, has tended to start, thinking that way, whether it's the Journal of Medicine or Educational Research or whatever, you get these headlines of, Stanford study says blah. So I think one of the contributions that qualitative research can make is to begin to provide some more nuanced analyses of these issues. The quantitative data can give us really nice, correlational data, in some cases good cause-effect data, but not very nuanced data. And so that's where qualitative research comes in, and that's where we need to somehow provide that level and it may be at the implementation level that we may have our strongest findings rather than at the policy framing level.